Okay. It's 5 o'clock, and so I'm calling this special Board of Education meeting to order. And we will begin with the flag salute. So, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Yay. All right. We'll let our last board member come in and take his seat so he isn't rushed, and just give it a few seconds. While I'm waiting for him, I will let everybody know that the LCAP family and community meetings are starting. The first one will be Tuesday, the 8th at 6 o'clock at your student's school. So you have a student in a Chico Unified School, you will have an LCAP meeting. And snacks and childcare will be provided. Thank you. All right, so we have Mr. Tennis, and now we can move forward. Tonight's is a discussion action calendar that's very specific. It is to deal with the California Voting Rights Act, the draft maps, and the sequence by district elections, and adopt resolution number 1570-22, establishing district-based elections, the final map for those elections, and the sequence for those elections. And I do have a speakers list. So again, this is only comments on the map issue that's in front of us. So the first person I have on the speakers list is Amber Brown. All right, Amber. And you'll have 3 minutes, and he will show you a card or ring a bell. Okay, ring a bell. All right.
Thank you. Good evening. Right here, Good evening, board members. My name is Amber Brown, and I am here to express my opposition to the orange maps, both A and B, and would like the board to adopt the green map. It is my understanding, and I thank Ms. Dalby for sending me this information, that the maps are being selected based on a set of criteria, most important being the 2 criteria that you are legally required to comply with: the California Voters' Rights Act and creating districts with nearly equal population. Additional criteria being considered are communities of interest, social economic data, housing tenure, neighborhoods of interest, school boundaries, and last and lowest priority is election sequencing, essentially mapping around incumbents' addresses. The green map most represents the ideology behind the Voters' Rights Act, number 1, and nearly equal population, number 2. Also most represents number 3. While the 2 orange maps meet some of the key points, they are below the green map in the top 3 criteria. They seem to focus on keeping trustee areas intact, mapping around their addresses, referred to as election sequencing. Number 8 on the list, the last criteria, and the lowest priority. The orange map completely negates the whole purpose of the Voters' Rights Act and behind at-large versus ward base. Let's define gerrymandering: the manipulation of an electoral constituency's boundaries as to favor one party or class. Gerrymandering protects a party lines and keeps bad incumbents in power. Is that what's going on here? I'm not sure, but it seems suspicious that 2 of our current board members favor the orange maps with a priority of election sequencing, mapping around incumbents' addresses, and continue to eliminate maps, blue and purple, that most represent the top 3 criteria, including what you're legally obligated to comply with: Voting Rights Act and nearly equal population. Please adopt the green map tonight that best meets the top 3 criteria, including the Voter Rights Act. This is the right thing to do. And remember, upset enough parents, and one of us may be sitting up there with you, or in some cases, without you. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Dr.
Yes,
Kaiser,
yes.
point of personal privilege, I can't access the maps on my agenda. Oh, my rescuer.
Was that your,
Yeah,
Okay.
I want to be able to follow the speakers by looking at what they're speaking to,
oh, all right.
and
Okay, so with that, our highly skilled tech genius, we'll move to speaker 2, Logan Wilson.
Hello there. My name is Logan Wilson. I have 3 boys who go to school here in Chico, a 4th grader in Little Chico Creek, and then 2 middle schoolers in Marsh. I'm also a business owner here in town, work in the real estate sector, have a property management firm, and work in the agricultural business as well.
thank you.
You don't know me. I don't know most of you, but that doesn't mean that I've been idly sitting by watching one of the most tenuous times in history to be a school board member and to be a parent as well, honestly. But I'm here specifically to express my support for the green map and my disapproval of the orange one. From what I've seen, and there's no reason for it to be untrue, the green map is the only objective one left. It really does boggle my mind to think the term gerrymandering has actually snuck its way all the way down to our local school board here in Chico, California. That type of political maneuvering seems like it should be reserved for Washington, D.C., or the House of Cards on Netflix, or something else, but not here in our local schools where our kids and my kids are the collateral damage. It's also appalling that there's simply even just the appearance that the current school board is attempting to choose their constituency through the orange map in an effort to preserve their own position. This goes entirely against one of the most powerful tools of the democratic process, which allows constituents to choose their own leaders, not the leaders choosing their constituents. I implore that each of you have the decency to cognitively remove yourself from the situation and simply evaluate how it looks to all of us parents on the outside. I'd hope that the self-directed and self-serving districting actually flies in the face of what you believe, or at least what you did at some point in time. Mr. Lando, I don't know you, you don't know me. But I urge you to hold true to your previous statements and have the integrity to stand firm in the midst of conflict. You are on record disagreeing with drawing the map lines around trustees, and I simply ask that you hold firm to that and don't change with the fickle whim of circumstance. I'm no political strategist, but I am a business strategist of some sorts. And honestly, my read on this situation is that if you vote for the orange map and approve that tonight, you're significantly overplaying your hand. You see, like it or not, each of your performance has been under a microscope for all of us parents. We've been backseat drivers for the last 2 years, and I don't envy your position for that. That's a tough place to be for each of you. I have 30 seconds? Perfect. So all that to say, what you have as a result of that is a very galvanized base of parents who crave common sense, stability, and putting our kids first at every decision. So I'd caution that if you vote for the orange map, you and all the incumbents will be met with a strategic and tactical response from us parents, just like the speaker before me mentioned, when your term expires. So from the bottom of my heart, I do honestly want to thank each of you for the efforts you put forth and the time, because this has not been an easy experience, I can imagine. It's been extremely difficult. And it's okay to disagree. I hope that you vote for the green map, not the orange one. Thank you.
All right, my next speaker is Julie Treat.
Hello, everyone. I'm here tonight to kind of wrap up this process that I've been involved in since the beginning in September. I decided this year I was going to be involved in all of the census and the map drawings. The county I did. I started here then with the school board, and then I'm right now starting with the city. So this is just about me following and wanting to really get involved with my constitutional process. So I'm just going to go through kind of how I've been involved in this thing to give you an idea. So September 1st, we got the introduction to King Consulting and the attorneys, and we heard all about the CVRA and the requirements to make sure we don't disenfranchise the Hispanic voter. We had three inputs from the community. We wanted one high school, or two high schools, or we wanted elementary school focus. So that's kind of how we started down the path on September 1st. September 2nd, we had another meeting just to make sure we got public input as required by law, and there was one that was submitted online. October 2nd, we didn't have a meeting specific to the maps. We had a big teachers contract going on, and there was, again, a lot of talk about the COVID. Okay. October 20th, this is when the census data actually came in. And so they were able to populate the maps and produce the blue, the green, the purple. We wanted to make sure we preserved trustee areas and talked about the census blocks, Hispanic community again, much more evenly distributed, so that was a good thing. And again, we started really doing the deep dive into the numbers and to all the spreadsheets. And you guys started asking for more data, I think, at that point. Then we got to November 3rd, and that's when, again, we had all hell break loose because of the vaccine mandate resolution, whatever you want to call it, which kind of puts us in the back seat again, but we still have a time to get to. We talked again about the very end of the meeting after that, blue, green, yellow, you guys give your input, socioeconomic, we talked all about Hispanic numbers again, went through all the analysis again in detail. And this is when we got to then the November 17th, the infamous November 17th meeting. This is when blue got eliminated. And that just like, what happened? That was the #1 commented popular map. And that's when we were told the meeting was going to be delayed from December 15th, which was the original date to get approval, until January 19th. So then we get to January 19th, and this is like, to me, basically redoing all over again that original October 20th from the census. I had to go through all this again with the orange maps, go through all the data. Now, how's it applying to my house, et cetera. Sequencing comes in. It was like, we should have done that last year. Needless to say, it is what it is. So this one here, we eliminate the purple map. The #1 map that your Hispanic community voted for was the purple. You all voted for the purple, pretty much pass. This, I had no idea why you eliminated the purple. I submitted my own maps, as did another parent. We had to basically on February 16th redo the whole thing again because there was somebody absent. So today, here we are, February 16th. My #1 issue here, you're stepping on the Constitution. I'm here to represent the democracy. The Constitution is the basis for it. By drawing a map with your home addresses, you better tell me right now, did you move last year? Are you going to move next year? Because if this was drawn based on your home addresses now, what if you move? What if you move next month? It shouldn't matter anything at all where you live. It matters about who and what we want as voters. And #2, the tax dollars. Thank you.
All right, our next speaker is Loretta Torres.
Good evening. My name is Loretta Torres. Last time we met, I was no name. This time I did figure out how to put my name in. I'm a grandma of 3 children in your districts. I have also, as a grandparent, watched how this has unfolded over the last 2 years with COVID and masks and mandates. And I do believe this has been hard for you, but I want you to know that these parents are not going to forget when you come up for election. So whatever maps you're thinking of drawing to help yourselves, they're little lines. Parents are going to find a way to vote you out. And my comments now are really to the people who are watching and listening. Find somebody in the districts, go out and beat the bushes, and find a good candidate to run against you, because you're not going to be here the next time if you don't vote for green. Thank you.
All right, my next is Joshua Flash. Is that correct?
Yes, Flash.
Okay.
All right, my name's Joshua Flash. I'm clearly here to support the green map and not the orange ones. In November, Ms. Robinson told Chico News and Review, and I quote, "There's no consideration for incumbency. Our concern is setting the districts up appropriately. Where people on the board live, we haven't even looked at." Well, the orange map came obviously after you guys looked at where you guys live. And that was after, let's keep in mind, the purple and the blue maps got voted out, okay? The consultants tried to defend the orange map by claiming it relieved election complexities, which I'll tell you what I think that means in a minute. I don't know if you realize it or not, but your vote tonight is going to convey one of 2 possible conclusions to voters. If you that you'll be able to win an election based on your actions. Even though I disagree with that, and I don't think you guys have done what's right for families recently with the COVID situation, I can appreciate that kind of integrity. However, if you choose the orange map, then you make it pretty clear that you're a failure as board members, you're confident in winning the election solely, you're not confident in winning this election solely based on merit. Probably because of your inaction to do what was best for our children by ignoring mass choice and refusing to hold teachers accountable when their biased, detrimental treatment of students made the maskless, or students that made the maskless choice, they were treated terribly. So you've essentially resorted to gerrymandering the map. It makes it easier for all of you to keep your seats. I'm not sure even if that'll help, but that's the way it looks to everybody. And with that, please vote for green and not blue, or orange.
All right, and our last speaker is Deanna Lindstrom.
Hi, my name is Deanna Lindstrom, and I thank you for giving me the chance to speak on these maps that seem to be an issue. No one asked for these maps. No one in the community wanted these maps, except the few that have shown just how power-hungry they truly are. Money was spent to create these maps, money taken from our children that could have been better spent on nutrition, arts, music, sports, and even healthcare in terms of emotional support for our children that need our help. This was done for a sole purpose of better positioning with bias for certain incumbents to have more area to control. The community has put their input on the maps they want, and you got rid of them. It so happened those are the maps that benefit certain power-hungry members the least. The ones that are still on the table benefit Kaiser and Robinson the most. Go figure. Again, the community did not ask for them. But since we are here, I vote for the green map, and so do many others in this community. Please vote for the green map. We need new leadership. Kathleen Kaiser, you have never had the best interest of my kids or anyone else's in mind. You've been a supervisor since 2006 and have become complacent in what you are doing instead of what you really should be doing for the community as a whole. Not just for your personal gain. You are rude even when responding to someone you do not agree with, even though they were polite to you. Time to move on. Eileen Robinson, you too cannot lead without a directive from the teachers union. You ignore every parent that does not agree with you, and you talk bad about us behind your back. Don't think I don't know what you say on social media. And as a member of the parent union, we know it is time for you to move on also. We need representatives for the parents and children, not for board members that only see themselves as being high and mighty and disregard for the well-being of the whole community. Tom Lando, please vote green. It is in the best interest of your community. But whatever it is you guys decide, I'm watching your every move, every decision, and will speak at every board meeting to hold you, Kathleen Kaiser and Eileen Robinson, accountable for continuing to take from and ignore our children, including keeping them masked.
So there were 3 other names on the back, and so I was mistaken. So we have Terry DeMarco. Terry DeMarco? Oh, good, okay.
Hello, my name is Terry DeMarco. I don't have children in the Chico School District, but I am a parent. From everything that I've seen and watched on all the YouTube videos, it seems to me that purple was a much better map than even the green or certainly the orange. And apparently, I'm not sure why that is, by the way, when that happened, the purple was just, cast aside. I didn't understand it when I was watching it on the video. Anyway, if citizens who are taxpayers are given any choice, I'll say the green map, because it just seems like it's a better option, unless you want to go back to purple. Purple might be something you want to think about. Seems the only reason, from what I've understood, unless I'm mistaken, which I don't think I am, the orange map seems to benefit some, maybe not all, but the school board members, and I don't think that's a good choice. I think you need to put the children and the family's needs ahead of your own. Anyway, I just think that's what y'all should do, is think about the constituents and people who you actually I would assume, some of you might consider that you actually work for the people that pay taxes in this city. So, yeah, the green map instead of the orange map, without a doubt. We just need, I just think that if you don't consider the purple or the green map, that there's a lot of parents who are going to see to it that you don't have to worry about this process and all these questions in the future. That's it.
All right, our next speaker is Jordan Colby. Jordan Colby, okay.
Good evening, Board. I'm Jordan. I have 2 kids at Parkview Elementary, 1 at Marsh Junior High. I would urge the Board to select the only objectively created map at this point by selecting the green map. It's a waste of taxpayer dollars to pay demographers to come up with maps that make sense for a school district, if in the end you just create districts around incumbent addresses. That would be pretty easy. There were better maps at the beginning of the process, as I stated when I addressed the Board. The purple map made the most sense to me, as elementary school boundaries can be very meaningful communities of interest regarding neighborhood schools. There was a lot of interest in the blue map. I feel the green map is probably the weakest of the original draft maps, but because you've disposed of the blue and the purple maps, the green map is the only one left that doesn't have the primary purpose of drawing a district for this specific board. This process will create trustee districts for the future of Chico Unified. Don't make it based on the present members of the school board. There's a recent poll by UC Berkeley Institute of Governmental Studies, and it shows that voter confidence in our public school system has hit an all-time low. 11 years ago, pollsters asked a series of questions to California voters about their attitudes regarding public education. At the time, 55% gave their public schools an A or a B grade. That is now dropped to 20%, 20 percentage points to 35%. And this time around, 25% of those surveyed gave public schools a grade D or F, up from 10% at the last survey. So I asked, why is that? It's because parents and students don't feel they have an advocate in education. My experience with Chico Unified is that our teachers and administrators are doing an excellent job. I love my kids' schools. I have only praise to say for their administrators and teachers. But parents and students need a voice. People can see that very few school boards were able to stand up to teachers' unions and provide leadership when they were needed the most in the last 2 years. School children suffered through needless school shutdowns and continue to be subject to COVID protocols that are more stringent for kids than what we have utilized in healthcare. I'm a healthcare worker. My kid's taken way more COVID tests asymptomatically to play basketball than I have to go treat immunocompromised patients. Those failures are a direct result of an inappropriate relationship between school boards and teachers' unions. Gerrymandering of election districts just looks like more of what people have come to expect from their public school boards. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, and then for real, the last speaker is Gina Bax.
Good evening, Board. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. It was so nice to see the whole community and the board working together on the process of redistricting a couple of months ago. The 2 groups were extremely comfortable with the original 3 maps. They weren't perfect, but somehow we got to manage it because these maps stayed true to their strategic intent of advocating for communities of interest, which is one of the most important principles of the Fair Maps Act. For example, the purple map had the highest percentage of Hispanic at 24.8 and was the only one that emphasized on elementary school boundaries. In contrast, the orange maps have the lowest percentage of Hispanic and will place Kaiser on my district, which makes me a little bit concerned. The last-minute addition of these 2 orange maps, only 2 people in our entire community requested, has also created anxiety, confusion, and frustration within the board and the community. At the board level, for example, board members showed no interest in this process and didn't even show up at the meetings when their vote was essential to expedite this process. This kind of pressure put on our board members could have been avoided, especially when they are just trying to stay true to themselves. Thank you, Lando, for that. Within our community, people go together to learn and educate each other about this process. We have park meetings, we create social media support groups, and reach out to board members for guidance and advice. We are desperate and just want our kids to be well represented. 2 years and almost $80,000 of taxpayer money later, here we are rushing to meet the map deadline to avoid legal sanctions. All this time and money could have been used to accommodate the needs of the hundreds of kids who have been left outside their classrooms under extremely bad weather conditions for not complying with mandates that are no laws and have not been proved to diminish the spread of COVID. Even our homeless have been offered shelter and warming centers to overcome the challenges of nature. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all those kids who have stood up for themselves outside your classrooms all day long with no direction on how to do your homework, and to all those kids who were brave enough to speak at these board meetings. You are true heroes, and you deserve an apology from all of us.
All right, that's the end of our speaker list, and I do thank you for taking the time and the emotional energy to show up. So what we have then before us is the one item, the California Voting Rights Act draft maps and sequence of by-district elections, and to adopt the resolution establishing district-based elections and the final map for those elections and the sequence for those elections. So is there a board member that would like to? From us. Yes, absolutely.
Oh.
Did you have a question?
I think Mr. Lando just asked my question, which is, can we discuss without a motion on the floor?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you, Doctor.
Well, we can ask for technical questions of staff before a motion is on the board. No. I don't have any technical questions. I mean, we've all looked at this data a long time, so I think we know what we know. Anybody else?
I have a question, and Mr. Gant, you might want to get ready. Put on your thinking cap. I understood from our colleague, Ms. Dalby, today that she was delayed because of a transportation issue. I took the liberty of calling the elections office today, and I understood from them that they didn't particularly mind if this decision were put off another week. Do you have, Mr. Gant, you seem knowledgeable about what our process is and time frame is. Do you feel there is an extremely compelling reason for us to move forward on this tonight rather than put it off one more week when we could be joined by Ms. Dalby and we would have the full board?
Well, ultimately, it's the board's decision whether to move forward tonight. So that's not, there's no legal compulsion. The deadline for the county committee to complete its work and presumably pass a resolution that further approves the map that's been selected by your district, and to also enter an order that the election that would otherwise be required under the law could be waived. The deadline for that the absolute deadline would be prior to 125 days before the election. The elections office, they typically don't want to get that 126 days before the election. I haven't spoken lately, or at all actually, with the elections office. I think we heard some comments from someone from the elections office 1 or 2 meetings back that indicated they have a very full plate and they would like to get it, with all due haste. That's reasonable. So I can't speak to what their soft deadline is for that. So I think it's just a question of what the board wants to do. I also can't speak for the county committee. We tend to think about the county committee as a check off the box, perhaps, or at least sometimes it's thought of that way. They are an independent agency. And they have every right to, once it becomes before them, to ask questions, to request more information, to have doubts. They're not required to approve the map that comes before them, and they're not required to waive the election. And it would be not appropriate for me to comment on what their process would be. We would certainly hope that when it comes before them that they would be ready and willing to move forward on the meeting that they receive it. At this time, the latest information I had was that they had intended and hoped to have their meeting on this topic on March 8th.
Yeah.
And I don't have any clarification as we sit here right now whether that intent or hope has changed. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. This isn't the outcome that I wanted tonight, but I think that given that our deadline for making this decision is July 6th, which is 2 months away, significantly longer than 2 months away. Is that 3 months or 4 months away? Can somebody help me out here? Anyway, I just feel that the county could pivot on this one and could figure out a way to approve our decision, given that we're the largest school district in the county by far. And since Ms. Dalby is unable to be here because of just an unfortunate thing with her travel arrangements, I think that it's the responsible thing for us to put this decision off for 1 more week. And so I would move that we do that.
Are you making a formal motion?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so a motion has been made to postpone this very specific agenda to the 9th of March. I need clarification.
Yes, it would coincide with our existing meeting that we're going to have on the 9th of March.
And that would miss the deadline for the county, which is their meeting, as far as we know, is scheduled for March 8th.
I would say it's not a deadline. I would say it's when they were planning to rubber stamp our decision.
Is there a second for this motion? Okay, so it dies for lack of a second.
Why not? Why can't you just say? May I make a motion?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I'm going to make a motion just so we can get the discussion portion. I am going to move adoption of the resolution with the green map as the adopted map.
Second.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Although it's hyper-technical, I did want to point out that the process is generally first to move the map, the recommended map, and then after, assuming that there is an adoption of a map and a sequence of elections, there would be that information then would be filled in on the resolution. So there'd be a second vote to formally approve the resolution, which could then be executed and ready for service on the county committee at the end of the meeting. I just wanted to.
No, thank you. Given that, I'd like to amend my motion to adopt the green map.
Second, as amended.
All right, so the motion before the board is to adopt the green map, and then as pointed out by council, it would require a further approval of the resolution with the information included. So we have discussion about this?
May I speak to this?
Yes.
Thank you so much. All right, a couple of things. As many of you pointed out, my commitment was not to care about where incumbents lived, and that's perfectly true. The only reason I'm voting for the green map is that it has the highest concentration of Hispanic Latino voters in an area. That's it. However, given that, I have a real concern about how this whole process has played out. The assumption that we are up here to look out for ourselves and the personal attacks on members of the board, well, I understand you're angry and frustrated about both the maps and the masks. understand it. I do understand it, I should say, but I'm worried about what it represents. That's interesting because middle school students have no problem at all. Yep. Excuse me, sir. Your fault. Okay. My point is that you've already convicted us before we've gone ahead and voted, which is frustrating. If we're going to talk about, I've heard a lot of comments about how people don't trust the school boards anymore. And I'm worried about what seems like a nationwide attempt to, an attack on public schools. I know that none of you intend that. I'm absolutely sure about that. Thank you for that. And this is, no, it's fine. I'm not flustered. I'm just trying to figure out how to address this best because I would love to get back to a community where we can, in fact, actually listen to each other without cussing and interrupting and yelling. And I'm not hand-slapping anybody here. It's happening everywhere in the state, in the county, in the city, in the nation. And the fact that one person continues to post inflammatory and often false Facebook messages and the same 40 people come out to yell about it every time, it's scary, and it's a complete abuse of what you should be doing. I appreciate that you were concerned about my absence. Though you have no reason to believe me, would like to assure you all that I've had some personal stuff and that I take this very seriously. I'm sorry to have missed those meetings. It was in no way about ducking the votes, as was not even implied, explicitly stated by Mr. Tennis. Given that, the green map is the best one because it fulfills the needs that we were required to meet with through the CBRA. So please continue to dislike me. Thank you.
I want to remind you that this is a board meeting and it's not a town hall, and inappropriate comments are really not what board meetings are about. It is our legal responsibility to make this discussion and this choice, which is not reflective necessarily of the comments that are being made. So please, everybody who wanted to submit a speaker card has had a chance to speak, and you did so with feeling, and so now it's the board's job to discuss the option in front of us. Thank you.
Dr. Kaiser?
Yes.
I would like to speak
All right.
to the motion. I share your concerns, Member Landau, about deterioration of a process that I've never seen before in the school board. School district, not school board. Saying that, however, I'm going to go back to where we got started with this process. From my perspective, this was not something we chose. I'm not sure if you were on the board yet when we first got. Yeah. Oh, okay. So you've been here since that first time when we had to agendize this issue before we got sued. Once it came before us in the way of, oh, this is coming, might as well accept it, I paid as much attention to that issue between board meetings as I literally paid so little attention. And the reason why is because I considered this process and having to do this. Number one, I understood why, but I didn't see it as anything that was going to benefit how well our kids were doing in classes, what our aides were doing, how many custodians we had. I saw it as so disconnected from our educational process that I did not pay attention to the process until, I had to do it before a board meeting and there was to be a decision. In the process of ignoring it, the COVID shutdown happened, and we suspended our process. And I didn't think about it again until we got word that the census information was going to be coming in October, and the governor was going to lift you can't wait any longer, you're going to have to do it. That's when, my attention again went back to this process. We had information about the fact that our Hispanic population is more throughout the community with this last census than it was before. There's not as much of a concentration as there was on what we were operating off of in the first few iterations of districts that we had when we first got this started. So we had some new information. When I take a look at what we have on our plate tonight, I see several things. Number one, there is a higher percentage of Hispanic population in Trustee Area 1. When I look down at Trustee Area, and that's on the green map, I want to make sure I'm accurate. On the Orange A, the Hispanic population doesn't go above 21.2% in Trustee Area 1. It does go to 22% in Trustee Area 2, back down to 21 in Trustee Area 3, and so it fluctuates with a lower percentage in Trustee Area 4 on the Orange A, and in Orange A5, it's down to 14.8%. So there are some deviations between green and the orange maps, because Orange A and Orange B are basically pretty much the same. So then I look at the next impact that we were made aware of, just as the consideration of maps had reached the point where we had 3, and I think we had eliminated 1 by then. But we were all, each board member, individually told that the sequencing process that we also had to approve, which we hadn't talked about yet, would create a situation with all 3 of the purple, blue, and green maps that we had not considered yet, but it would present situations where current board members, in order to keep their seats, if they chose to, would have to run against each other. That, has never been a possibility in this school district before. It's the creation of this process that put us in a position where 2 board members, or 3, in the case of some of the sequencing stuff, would be running against another currently seated board member. And I considered that in the current community atmosphere of dissension, that one of the last things I wanted to see was board members running against each other instead of board members who were totally focused on the area that the district that they would represent if they chose to run, and would be elected, that they would be running against someone not currently on the board. And I thought that considering the current climate politically, that would be the best outcome, because having board members run against each other, I don't see that as a very positive thing in this community right now. Then, if you take a look at what the orange map do and allow board members to decide to either run or not against another community member rather than a sitting board member, that would lower the temperature in this community, and that if people wanted to run against someone that was currently on the board, that's fine. That's what we expect as sitting board members. But the divisiveness that running against another board member would create was not something that I thought would be good for the board and the district.
Sir, you are interrupting a board member's conversation about. I am very aware of what I'm doing. All right, then a reason that you want to act like you don't know how a board meeting runs? You don't know how to behave in public? Is that your reason? How do you feel? I am finding your acrimonious comments very disruptive, and it's not facilitating the board meeting at all.
Dr. Kaiser, may I continue?
Yes, please do.
You're complicit with abusing my kids. Period. So I'm here to make sure you know it. And that you know the community will never vote any of you into office again.
I asked if I could continue.
Yes, she did. She's trying to finish her comments.
The next part of the consideration for what to do tonight, I go back and look at some of our criteria from the beginning. And I look at the way the orange maps configure the neighborhoods, the big blocks. There's a difference between Orange A and Orange B, and I think that's something that we need to discuss in depth. But I do not believe that there's any disadvantage to the protected class by supporting Orange A or Orange B. I do believe that having this process begin with a level playing field, and that just means the opportunity is there if a board member chooses to run without running against a fellow board member. And so I don't see any downside to the orange maps. I do see a downside to continuing disruptive behaviors, both online and in person, which I believe would be the result of approving the green map. Now you go back to what would happen with the green map.
May I speak to that for a moment? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I hate to interrupt. I want to touch on that premise because, it took a year or so, but you guys thought out to me eventually. We all ran in the same election. I don't see that as any kind of a problem. You run against somebody, and if you win, then the other person isn't there anymore to be grumpy about it. I don't think.
Again, I remind you, this is not a town hall. That's not the law. Go ahead, Matt.
Mr. Landau, I'm not going to debate you on that issue. You and I have different opinions. I respect your service and I respect your opinion. And I don't wish to make it a divisive issue. That's my reason, is to avoid what we're seeing.
But we have an adversarial political system. It's the nature of the system we're in.
Okay, no, that's okay. If you look at the sequencing issue of the green map, it doesn't allow for a level start. And I don't see why that isn't important to us. A level start means there's one board member in each district.
No, it doesn't. A level start means we all have a chance to run a campaign and win an election. And that's true in any map we have.
Okay, my opinion is that the level playing field is one member per district to begin this process. After this election year, then it's free and open, and there wouldn't be.
Hopes it would be free and open the whole time.
I'm sorry, what? Oh, okay. No, I'm pretty much. I think you understand my position. I believe that regardless of what the sequencing does, that the orange map, both A and B, with the change of some of the student count in A going to B, or is it B going to A, is important for us to consider in getting these districts. The other thing that I believe people don't understand about, at least how I feel, is we're a Chico Unified School District. It doesn't matter what district we get elected from. Once we're elected, we represent every student in the district from every district. And so in my mind, I want to separate the two processes. One's political, and I don't like it. I've never liked politics. I don't like running for election. I don't like campaigning.
Sir, you are being incredibly rude. Then why don't you leave?
Point of order. Sir, we are not going to get to the vote. Okay, but I'm not asking you to leave. I'm asking you to be quiet so we can debate, so we can get to the vote, so we can all get out of here.
When you create
Dr. Kaiser.
when you create an atmosphere of harassment, you are interfering with the process of us taking a vote. This is the discussion before the vote and clarifying the rationale that each board member has is important. So, did you have anything else further you wanted to add?
Dr. Kaiser, no, just to point out that the orange maps do give a much clearer picture of, if you look at the drawings on the green map, they don't as easily identify what our criteria were, and I believe the orange maps do, and I'm ready.
All right, thank you. Yes, Matt?
That last point that you just made, Madam Robinson, it's not entirely our fault or anyone's fault. I mean, it's actually, let me rephrase that, it's actually your fault. Sorry to throw a log on whatever fire there is today, but you voted to eliminate the blue map and the purple map, right? And so you can't complain that you can't lay any complaint that the green map doesn't accurately represent, I think maybe it was neighborhoods you were alluding to. Hey, I mean, the blue map did a great job with that, but it was the wrong color. It wasn't orange. And so it got eliminated, and the same thing happened to the purple map. I, as some of you might remember, had an opportunity to study abroad as a foreign exchange student to Israel. When I was there, I took a couple of classes on Middle Eastern politics and history. And Middle Eastern politics and history are full of hardball politics. Politics where they don't have things like the Constitution. They don't have things like bodies of law that govern all of their lives that they honor and adhere to as individuals. What they value historically, okay, and it'd be great if this could change, but is who's the most powerful person, who has the most guns, the most troops, who controls this place. And that's what they pay homage to, not the law. The orange maps in this situation are closer to that than anything else that's ever been considered, than any other map, because the orange maps care about the current office holders more than they care about where the best place is to draw a line. What's the best way to organize the city? That's my reason why the green map, as Mr. Lando is saying, is objectively the best choice for democracy. Rob Murray, who each and every one of us knows is a very able-bodied demographer, he came up with 3 good maps for this process, and he said right up here a month ago that he had no idea when he drew those maps where anyone lived. After all, that was the marching orders that he had been preliminarily given 2 years ago, was to not take that into consideration or make it a very last bottom priority, okay? He didn't even know where we lived when he made those maps, blue, purple, and green. And only one of those remains, and it's the green one. And that's what makes it the best. It was objectively created. It was democratic. You ask any global citizen, which of these 2 options today, if you asked it on this very day, March 2nd, 2022, 98% of them would say the green map is better if you appraised into the facts. Why? Because it has one thing it can brag about that the others do not have, and that is that the guy who put it together was completely blind to the stakeholders, the existing current stakeholders. And he was doing something that was just best for the people and best for the democratic process. So that's my argument for the green map.
All right, so I would like to,
Dr. Kaiser?
yes,
May I respond?
yes.
Mr. Tennis, do you remember stating that your sole purpose was to make sure that there were turnovers in the board and that you would do anything you could to make sure that the current board was not reelected by utilizing one of the other maps?
I do not remember making that statement.
All right, so I want to go back to the legal reason that we had to do this and that we were threatened with being sued if we didn't. And that is the California Voting Rights Act recognizes when a recognized minority group loses the ability to influence an election. And they only needed one case historically to prove that. And it did happen in Chico, not I don't believe in the actual board, but in a city election where an Hispanic candidate failed to get votes in the open, everybody votes the same. But in the areas where there was more Hispanic living, she got more votes. So to me, the critical thing with this is that when I look at the orange maps and the 18-plus Hispanic population, which means they could vote, they're pretty balanced, whereas the green gives more to just one area. There are 3 areas on the orange maps where potentially an Hispanic candidate with the voting age population could gain influence, could be elected. And that was the whole purpose of the Voting Rights Act. We did say, we got comments from from the population at large that neighborhoods were very important. Chico has always recognized real significant neighborhood influence, and those got strengthened in the orange maps. The avenues have been a long time organized group, and that was another neighborhood. The mountain communities got recognized as being very distinctive communities. They live in very different circumstances than most people in the city limits live in. And so those were the things that I saw as very attractive. The context of this is on a lot of other things, they're relatively equal. But those were the 2 things that I thought were particularly of interest. So the neighborhoods that were recognized were the Barber neighborhood, the Chapmantown neighborhood, downtown, South Campus, the avenues, and Cal Park. So the effort was to try to recognize those neighborhoods and then, of course, recognize the mountain communities. So I'm in favor of either of the orange maps, but probably orange B the most because it did bring more school populations into that area. A lot of comments we have gotten about the size of the area. The size does not matter at all. It's literally population. That is the key factor. They have to be, by law, relatively equal. And that was done. So all of these maps were drawn by the same demographer group, and they're all legally meeting the qualifications demanded by the California Voting Rights Act. So, yes, go ahead.
Sorry. I just wanted to address the point you made about having many trustee areas with a high Hispanic Latino population, because my understanding was that the point was simply to get the highest concentration in one, so that it would be more likely to win a single seat, which is why I'm looking at green again, because it has that one that just happens to have the highest number. I think we really need to consider that as, again, the whole reason we're in this mess in the first place.
It's 1 percentage point among the voting age.
Yeah, it's 22.7.
No, the voting age.
Yes, I understand that.
21.7, 21.7, and the other one, the green, is 22.7.
Oh, yes, but one is bigger than the other.
Yes, by 1 percentage point. All right, so are there any other comments that any board member wants to make? Well, do we want to call for the vote then on the motion? The motion is to vote for the green map. Okay, do you want to call for the vote?
Madam President, you call for the
Okay,
vote,
so-
and I'll begin with a roll call.
All right, so the vote's been called for on that motion, and, all right, Robinson?
This is on the motion.
Yes, the green
To
map.
approve green. Robinson, no.
Okay,
Landau, aye.
okay. Kaiser, no?
Tennis, aye.
Okay. Okay, so we have to, by law, have 3 yeses to pass any ballot. So do we want to have more discussion?
Can I get a clarifying question there? Since Mr. Gant is here. Is it that we have to have 3 yeses, or that we have to have 2 versus 1 with at least a quorum of 3 present?
No, 3 yeses.
You need a majority of the board, a quorum of the board in favor of any vote.
Thank you.
And so at 2-2, the vote has failed.
Yes,
So the vote is final, and it has failed.
thank you.
Yes, okay.
I have a comment
All right.
that the last meeting, Ms. Dalby voted in favor of the green map. I'm going to read from an email that I have here from Keaton Denley that I'm happy to forward to you that I just received.
From who?
Keaton Denley, who's the gentleman we
Oh,
heard from.
the election officer.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
point of order, I'm sorry.
Yes.
And I mean no disrespect, but in order to have this kind of discussion, we need to be inside a motion. So if someone wants to pop it on the table just so we can do this, that would be great.
I'd like to, well, I'm going to make a motion similar to one I already made. And I think that this email here provides a basis for doing it. Are you okay with
That would be discussion.
So make the motion and then we'll discuss it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And maybe one of you didn't second earlier, but maybe you'll change your mind. But I think that we're okay putting this decision off for another week. I'm looking at verbiage from the elections office in Butte County. It seems to indicate we have easily enough wiggle room to put this decision off. We're all going to be here anyway. We don't have to make a decision right now.
So you want to actually state your motion?
So I move that we put this decision off for one more week.
I will second that.
Okay, so it's got a second?
Okay, by way of discussion, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
This deadline date for the county committee to adopt the resolution is July 6th. While our office would greatly appreciate that the maps are done sooner rather than later, it would appear from our point of view that the school district does still have some wiggle room on the timeline for adopting the maps, pending the process at the county committee level. Hope this provides some clarity. Keaton Denley. I apologize for the lateness of this communication, but when I found out that Ms. Dalby, knowing that she had supported the green map, I wanted to get an answer to this question, and so I got it. I feel like we should just put this off. I know it's not what we want to do, but.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. That's information that is reinforcing the motion. Is there any other discussion? Yes, Tom.
Yes. So it seems like we have to, frankly. I mean, I'm a pragmatist. It's why you guys don't like me about the mask mandates. But it seems like the only thing we can do here is to put it off, because otherwise we're going to sit here all day making motions about green or orange and voting 2-2. So let's just, I hate booting it, frankly. I wish Ms. Dalby were here so we could do this. But I also don't want to stay here until 10 o'clock voting 2-2 over and over again.
All right. Eileen, did you?
Yes, Madam President. I don't support the motion. I do believe that with further discussion and consideration, considering what our criteria are, that we should be able to come to a decision this evening.
May I?
Yes.
I mean, there's a reason why deliberative bodies always have an odd number of people, just so this kind of situation doesn't happen. We're locked, we're going to stay locked. I hear what you're saying, but there is no super compelling reason. It's easy, it's better for the county, it's kind to them, and they're going to have a different meeting at a different time, but that is not the end-all, be-all. I mean, I don't see why we can't wait until we have a full 5 so we can actually have a vote that everyone feels like they're completely heard on.
Ms. Robinson?
I believe it's up to you to call for a vote. We have a motion
Okay.
on the
Well,
floor,
I didn't
and
know if there was
I'm ready to vote.
more discussion. That's what I was calling. Okay. So the situation is, we have input from the election office that they believe that it could be postponed. That's not the county, but still a critical input. And the motion is to postpone till March the 9th. And we have, so I guess we call for the question.
Robinson, no?
Lando, aye.
Kaiser, aye.
Tennis, aye.
Okay, so this decision has been postponed to March the 9th. And I truly appreciate, Paul, you being here for your legal advice. And perhaps we need to see if Kings, if they can be here also on the 9th. So that is literally the only item on the agenda. So this board meeting is closed.